Welcome back, Bridgewater College Teacher Education Program students. In this screencast, we're going to learn to use another one of the icons that's at the top of your Smart Notebook toolbar, namely the table icon. We'll also use a few other tools that we've used before, but we'll use them in a new fashion today. You might notice that as we go through the tutorials, we're basically learning how to use all the tools that are up here on your toolbar one by one. And today, we're going to focus on using the table icon. The table icon is useful anytime you want to construct a shape that has rows and columns to it. So let's go to a new page. Remember how to do that. We can just go up to Insert New Page, blank page. So I've got a blank page in front of me now, and I'm going to grab the table icon. When I do, it allows me to use my mouse to decide how big of a table I want. I can pick 4 by 4, 3 by 6. I can even go larger than this if I want to. But I'm going to assume that we're going to make a simple seating chart that's for a classroom that has 5 rows and 5 columns in it. So I'm going to choose a 5 by 5 table. I click 5 by 5 table, and sure enough, I get 5 rows and 5 columns. You might notice that the boxes aren't square, they're rectangular, and if you would prefer them to be square, which I do, I'm going to change their size. To do that, I'll go to the drop-down menu, I'll come down to Adjust Size, and on it I'll say Make the cells square. Now you might notice that part of my table is off the screen. When you want to move a table, you use the square icon that's in the upper left-hand corner. So let me pull that table up to here. Now you might notice also at the bottom right-hand side, there's that circular icon that we've learned can be used to resize it. So let me make this a little bit smaller. After all, I'm going to make a seating chart for my classroom, and so I want to have room for the students' names, but I also want to add, for example, my desk in here to see where my desk would be so I can orient the names based on where my desk is. I'm going to put my desk at the front of the room, so I'll go back to the Shapes icon, which we've looked at before. I'll grab the rectangular tool, which is here. I'll come down into my page and simply draw a rectangle. And now I have a rectangle for my desk, and I have the 25 cells representing the students' desks. If I want to make any changes to either the teacher desk or the student's desk, I need to make sure I'm no longer using the Shapes tool, I'm using the Arrow tool. This is something you'll have to get used to. Always click on the Arrow tool when you want to make a change. Now, for example, a purist would say, why is the teacher desk so dark and yet the students' seats are light? And I would like to be consistent. Well, if you want to make the desk lighter, you need to click on it and go to the Properties icon, which is right here. Click on that Properties icon, Line Style, and now you can pick a thinner line to where it matches the student desk. Or if I want to undo what I just did, and remember this is the Undo tool, but this time I want to make the student desk dark, you might say, well, I'll click on the table. Well, I'm clicking on the table and nothing seems to happen. If you want to click on an entire table, the trick is to take your mouse and start to draw a box around it, and then it becomes highlighted. Now we can come over here to Line Style and pick a thicker line style if we want to make our student desk match the teacher desk. Having done that, now it makes sense to start putting names in. So this would be the students that are nearest to me. Remember, this is the front of the room. So maybe in this seat right here, that's where Ben sits. So I'll put Ben here. Maybe in this seat, Amber sits here. Ooh, I don't like the fact that that text is so large it made the box too big. We'll fix that in a minute. Maybe Carrie sits here, and maybe Josh sits here. Let's fix the fact that this text is just too big. I already have my text style up. So what if I highlight this cell and change the size to something smaller, maybe 20 points? I would need to do that for the others too. In fact, it would have made sense had I started this way for all of my cells, and then that way I wouldn't have to come back and fix these one by one as I'm doing now. In fact, before I go to the next cell and add the next student, I want to make sure that my size is set to 20. And now I can type in this student's name, who happens to be Betsy. All the purists would say, shouldn't those be centered? And to center, all I have to do is to click on the center icon. But notice it only centered Betsy. It didn't center the others. Remember, if you want something to apply to the whole table, first you highlight your table. And the way to highlight a table is to draw the box around it. Now click on center, and indeed all of them get centered. I'm going to fill in the rest of the student names in my classroom, and then we'll look at our finished seating chart in a few seconds. Okay, as you can see, I've typed in the rest of my names into my seating chart, and now I have a chart made up using the table tool. Let's go on to another example of using the table tool. This time I'm going to have my students come up to the SmartBoard one at a time and create a pictograph based on the letters in their first name. For example, Kay would have 3 letters in her first name. Morgan would have 6. We'll consider Mary Catherine as having 14 letters in her name, and so forth. So to create a pictograph, I'll go to a new page. I'm going to put a line at the bottom of the page, so we'll go to the line tool, and we'll pick a regular line. And remember, if we hold our shift key down, it'll make the line horizontal for us. So let's make a horizontal line. Now below it, I want to put some possibilities for the number of letters. I think that the lowest number of letters a child might have in his name will be 2. Maybe a child like Ed, or someone who goes by initials like BJ. So we want to have the numbers down here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth. There are multiple ways of doing that. I mean, after all, I could just click on the text tool and type 2 space 3 space and so forth. But instead, I'm going to use the idea of the table to do this. So I'm just undoing my work. Instead of using the text tool, I'm going to use the table tool to put the numbers underneath the line, such as 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. So I'll click on the table tool, and it looks like I can only go up to 8 across, and that's as far as I can go. But actually, if you hold your mouse down, you can drag, and you can make your table larger. I'm going to go up to size 13. I'm going to have 1 row and 13 columns. And now here's the table that I have. I'm going to put the numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth into this table. I want to stretch it and make it a little bit bigger. After all, I want it to be pretty much the same size as the line that's down here below. Let's put it down below the line, and let's stretch until it goes across. So now I'll put 2 there, 3, I'll double click, 4, double click, 5, double click, 6, and so forth. Double click here, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and I'm just going to put a plus here for a student who has more than 13 letters in their name. I don't like the fact that these are left justified. So remember how we select all of the items in a table? You can't just click on one cell, because then whatever you change affects only that cell. How about if I use the idea of surrounding my table with a box, and now anything that I do will apply to the whole table. Let's click on the center button. That looks nicer. To be honest with you, I don't need these numbers to have a solid box around them, though. Let's get rid of the box. Now, how to do that? If I go to line style, it looks like I don't have any choice here for how thick the line is. I certainly don't want to make the line thicker. What I'd like to do is get rid of it. Well, a trick I can do is what if I made it white? Then a white on white would not show. So sure enough, I've clicked white on white, and now my box doesn't show. Okay, now I'm going to have my students come up one at a time. Before they come up, though, I'm going to go to the Creative Pen, and I'm going to choose the Creative Pen that looks like a star, and that star is right here. So the first student comes up, and maybe the first student is Anne. Anne has 3 letters in her name, so she simply takes her finger and touches the board right there, and she has a star. The next student who comes up is Thomas. He's got 6, so he clicks here. The next student is Jim. He also has 3, so he'll click here. And then the next student is Lynn. She has 4 letters. She'll click here, and so forth. And gradually we'll be building a pictograph simply based on the number of letters in a student's name. We could ask our students questions about this pictograph, such as how many students have at least 9 letters in their name? How many students have less than 6 letters in their name? For the final example that we're going to do with the table tool, we're going to construct what are known as 10 frames. Let's go to a blank screen. A 10 frame, which is a table that has 2 rows and 5 columns to it. So let's click on the table icon. We're going to make it a 2x5 table, and here it is. I'm going to use that idea of making it square, adjust size, make it square, and I'll move it up here. Now that's called a 10 frame, and typically with the 10 frame what you do is you put colored discs onto each of these squares. So what we need to do now is to construct some discs. Let's go to the shape tool. Let's pick the circle tool, and I want to make a circle about as big as one of these squares. Now with the circle tool you start in the middle and go out, so I'm going to drag out and I'll stop about right there. What I'd like to do now is to color that circle. In order to color the circle, one way I could do it is to click on the paint bucket, which is the fill icon. We haven't used that one before. If I click on the fill button, pick my color, maybe red, and then click inside the circle. Indeed, I've made a red disc. What I would like to do now is to clone this. How about if I go to my arrow tool? Remember, you always start by going to the arrow tool, come to the drop down, and say clone. So now I have 2 discs. Actually, what would work even better is if I put my disc down here and use that infinite cloner idea. So now I have an infinite stack of discs. So if I wanted to show 7, I simply drag 7 up here to my table using my finger, or in this case the mouse, and I can show 7 on my 10 frame. What we might also do is to create another set of discs with a different color. So then we could use our 10 frame to show simple addition, like 3 plus 5. So what if I clicked on my infinite cloner? I'm going to get rid of the infinite cloner for a second. I'm going to clone this, drag it over to here, go back to my paint bucket tool, pick blue, click inside my disc. So now I've got a blue set of discs. Well, actually I don't have a set yet. To get the set, I click on the arrow tool, click down here, infinite cloner, click back on the red, infinite cloner. So now I've got discs that I can use. Let's clear the board. How do we clear the board? Well, we can just click on each of these red ones and hit the delete key. Or I can use the X up here if I want to. So now I might show 4 plus 3. So we'll start with 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's add 3 to it. 1, 2, 3. So now what I have is 7. 4 plus 3 makes 7. That's 5 and 2 more. Okay, we've seen how to use the table tool along with some other tools such as the line tool and the shape tool to create activities for our students. In the next screencast, you're going to learn to use other tools on the toolbar that we haven't looked at yet. In particular, we're going to learn to use the screen capture tool. See you then.